We're going to read from John chapter 8. We're just in the second week. If you're visiting today, we're in the second week of a series in John's Gospel called Jesus Is. And we're looking at the 7 I am statements between now and Easter. So this week's I am statement is, I am the light of the world. So if you turn to John chapter 8, starting at verse 12. Jesus spoke again to the people. He said, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. The Pharisees challenged him. Here you are, appearing as your own witness. Your testimony is not valid. Jesus answered, even if I testify on my own behalf, my testimony is valid, for I know where I came from and where I am going. But you have no idea where I came from or where I am going. You judge by human standards. I pass judgment on no one. But if I do judge, my decisions are right, because I am not alone. I stand with the Father who sent me. In your own law, it is written that the testimony of 2 men is valid. I am one who testifies for myself. My other witness is the Father who sent me. Then they asked him, where is your Father? You do not know me or my Father, Jesus replied. If you knew me, you would know my Father also. He spoke these words while teaching in the temple area near the place where the offerings were put. Yet no one seized him because his time had not yet come. Once more Jesus said to them, I am going away, and you will look for me, and you will die in your sin. Where I go, you cannot come. This made the Jews ask, will he kill himself? Is that what he said? Is that why he says, where I go, you cannot come? But he continued, you are from below, I am from above. You are of this world, I am not of this world. I told you that you would die in your sins. If you do not believe that I am the one I claim to be, you will indeed die in your sins. Who are you? They asked. Just what I've been claiming all along, Jesus replied. I have much to say in judgment of you, but he who sent me is reliable, and what I have heard from him I tell the world. They did not understand that he was telling them about his Father. So Jesus said, when you have lifted up the Son of Man, then you will know that I am the one I claim to be, and that I do nothing on my own, but speak just what the Father has taught me. The one who sent me is with me. He has not left me alone, for I always do what pleases him. Even as he spoke, many put their faith in him. To the Jews who had believed him, Jesus said, if you hold to my teaching, you are really my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. They answered him, we are Abraham's descendants and have never been slaves of anyone. How can you say that we shall be free? Jesus replied, I tell you the truth. Everyone who sins is a slave to sin. Now a slave has no permanent place in the family, but a son belongs to it forever. So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. I know you are Abraham's descendants, yet you are ready to kill me because you have no room for my word. I am telling you what I have seen in the Father's presence, and you do what you have heard from your father. Abraham is our father, they answered. If you were Abraham's children, said Jesus, then you would do the things Abraham did. As it is, you are determined to kill me, a man who has told you the truth that I heard from God. Abraham did not do such things. You are doing the things your own father does. We are not illegitimate children, they protested. The only father we have is God himself. Jesus said to them, if God were your father, you would love me, for I came from God, and now I'm here. I have not come on my own, but he sent me. Why is my language not clear to you? Because you are unable to hear what I say. You belong to your father, the devil, and you want to carry out your father's desire. He was a murderer from the beginning, not holding to the truth, for there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks his native language, for he is a liar and the father of lies. Yet because I tell the truth, you do not believe me. Can any of you prove me guilty of sin? If I am telling the truth, why don't you believe me? He who belongs to God hears what God says. The reason you do not hear is that you do not belong to God. Would you give a warm welcome to Matt Vaine?
Thank you so much. And thank you, Paul, for reading that passage, a long passage. Now, as Paul said, we're continuing this series in John's Gospel, and we're looking at Jesus' claim for himself that I am the light of the world. And to explore this claim, I want you to try and imagine with me the moment that Jesus declares this profound statement, because the occasion is quite something. It really is. And just to try and help your imagination, help our imagination, I've actually got an image, here we go, of the temple, of the Jerusalem temple, because Jesus proclaimed this announcement about himself. It appears during the final and greatest day of the Feast of Tabernacles. Now, I don't know if we know what the Feast of Tabernacles was celebrating, but essentially, it was this occasion where hundreds of thousands of people would gather at the temple to remember Israel's exodus through the wilderness, and particularly at night, where God would go ahead of them as a pillar of fire to guide their way to the promised land. Now, at this festival, there's this important experience that occurs where this big courtyard area was called the Women's Court, because it was here that men and women could come together and could worship God. And onlookers would marvel at these 16 large jars built into the wall, filled with oil and set alight. Now, such a vivid demonstration would illustrate not only what God has done in the past in the wilderness, but who God is. For example, in Psalm 27, it says, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?" So, with this festive occasion, the Feast of Tabernacles, remembering God's action and nature, and standing directly in front of this wall of blazing light, Jesus says, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Now that's theatrical, isn't it? Did you ever think about that? I didn't. Wow. What's Jesus saying then? He's announcing that he's God himself who guided Israel through the wilderness, and now he leads whoever follows him into eternal life. As with many of Jesus' claims about himself, such a remarkable statement either expands people's imagination, wow, of God, bringing light to see God in a fresh new way, or it further constricts people's imagination of God. It grows smaller and smaller. Just some examples. Remember in John, I think it's John 3, the lonely woman at the well, a life really of darkness and loneliness, meets Jesus. And her life just grows bigger and bigger. She bounds off shouting, I've seen the Messiah, I've seen the Messiah. And suddenly she's embraced by this community who formerly excluded her, and the community embraced God. Her life and her vision of God just grows bigger and bigger and bigger. But then, contrasting this woman, in our passage today, the Pharisees' first words in the whole of John's Gospel, which are here, are to hold Jesus to account. Because they think they've got God and his ways figured out. And yet God, in Jesus, who's standing right before them, the Pharisees treat him as a criminal because he doesn't fit their narrow box. And so they end up in further darkness of their minds, the stumbling around. That's the power of Jesus' words. Either it expands our imagination or we're offended by them and it shrinks our imagination of God. Now I wonder, who do we think we are out of the two? Are we the ones who are open to Jesus and his immense work in the world? I think sometimes, yeah. Or are we the ones who may inadvertently disregard him? Now I think it is tempting to say we're the open ones. We're the open ones to Jesus. But as I look further into the story, I can't help but think that there are ways, like the Pharisees, that we can imitate that kind of, that mind in which our vision of God grows dim. And in the passage, in fact, there are 3 ways where that can happen, which is what we're going to explore today. Our vision of God can grow dim as first, we obsess about our idealized future. Secondly, we distrust Jesus' testimony. And thirdly, we adore our traditions. Now, as we look into these areas, my prayer is that we can begin to open our eyes to the magnitude of Jesus. I don't know about you, but I tend to obsess about the future. I really do. I find it really fascinating thinking about the future. And historically, this tendency is manifested in stressing about who I get married to, or if I'd get married, regarding work, which job I might do next, working for the church, frantically pursuing this idealized vision of the ministry that I'm involved in. But I've found, if I'm not careful, I can get so hung up on the future that I forget to appreciate and pay attention to the wonder of what God is doing right here, right now. The Pharisees did such a thing. They were obsessed about their particular vision of the kingdom of God. And they thought that if they could live in a degree of purity, God's kingdom would come. So they created so many laws, so many extra laws. Get this, and I think I've shared this before in a previous Sabbath talk. Their vision of conducting the Sabbath, of resting with God. They thought to be faithful to God on that day, it was right not to tie or loose knots, sew more than one stitch, or write more than one letter. Because they attempted to conceive every possible way to realize their kingdom dreams. They were obsessed about their future. Now get this. The kingdom of God was right before their very eyes. It was right there. The thing they'd longed for was right there. God himself was in their midst. In the present, in the land of the living. Jesus was there. The Pharisees lived so much for a fantasy of a future that they stopped appreciating life in the present where God is most at work. God is most at work here, right now, because this is the only life we get to live, right here, right now. The Pharisees' interaction with Jesus raises our first concern, that the obsession of our desired future can actually lead us most away from Jesus. C.S. Lewis, the author of the Narnia book series, states the future is least like eternity. He says it's the most completely temporal part of time. In other words, it's non-existent. You can never reach the future, can you? We're always living in the present. The past is frozen. It no longer flows. It was what it was. But the present is all lit up with eternal rays. This, right now, is where God is working. Hence, nearly all sins are rooted in the future. Gratitude looks to the past. Love is expressed in the present. But fear, greed, lust, and ambition look ahead. Now, I don't think that's the whole picture, because regret can be part of our past, and hope can be part of our future. But if we were to do an audit of our imaginations, do we live most consciously in a frozen past, in a future fantasy, or a potent present? If we were to begin to live in the present, as pastor and author Eugene Peterson states, we move away from anxiously obsessing about our own small religious or personal acreage, and instead we begin to marvel at God's interstellar grace. We live a life celebrating God's constant and countless acts of grace in our lives, our families, our friends, creation, salvation, life itself. We're living in a wonderland. We go from a life of anxiety of the future to worship and delight right here, right now. As the Pharisees failed to see Jesus for who he is, they questioned his testimony, essentially saying, Jesus, you're claiming to be the so-called light of the world, but all we've got is your word on it. So they demand another witness to corroborate Jesus' claim, and they essentially employ the terms of Deuteronomy 17:6, that a criminal must have 2 or 3 witnesses to defend themselves. Essentially they're saying, Jesus, you're a blasphemer. You're lying. You're guilty. Your testimony alone is invalid. And Jesus essentially responds and says, I have no need to defend myself. I'm not a blasphemer. My word is valid because I'm from God. I am God, and I'm going back to God. I'm going back to my Father. And then Jesus reverses the situation to become their judge. He says, you seem to claim to know about God, but the fact that you're vehemently opposing me shows that you've got absolutely no understanding about God at all. And he goes on to say, to enact his divine judgment of them, and says 3 times, if you don't believe that I am, Jesus uses the name of God at the burning bush, if you don't believe I am God, you will die in your sins. That is powerful words. That's the words of God to someone, for people who so violently reject him. And so what we see in this moment is, like the Israelites, those Israelites that failed to enter the promised land, they died in the wilderness because they failed to trust God. These Pharisees, if they failed to acknowledge Jesus as God, they will never enter God's kingdom. I don't know, I find it really interesting, this is just an aside. Jesus doesn't speak like this to the outcasts and the marginalized. He doesn't speak like this to the Romans, the enemies of Israel. He talks like this to the religious because they seem to know God the best, or at least they claim so. Jesus doesn't speak like this to everyone. And this is why it's challenging for us, because we're the religious ones, aren't we? He's got a powerful word to us. Now, this raises the second concern. Like the Pharisees' judgment that Jesus' testimony is insufficient, his word isn't enough. We can do the same. And we do it through 2 ways, either a privatized faith or an activist faith. Now, let me explain. In the 1970s, one of the greatest missionaries of the 20th century returned home to England after a long tenure in India. In doing so, Leslie Newbigin is amazed, in his words, to say, he said, England is more pagan than India. He said, England's populated with these shopping mall shrines, and it's dominated by this unceasing clamor of advertising, and the whole society worships the god of consumerism. And amidst such as a religious culture in a consumeristic sense, Newbigin said that the church has lost confidence in the gospel. It's lost confidence that Jesus really is the Lord of the whole world. And so, aware of the church's decline, the church begins to resign itself to a private, personal Christian faith. It's my choice. This isn't a public expression. This isn't the truth. This is just my belief. That's one of the tendencies the church can do. Because Jesus' word isn't enough. He's the Lord of my life, but not the Lord of the whole cosmos. No, just my personal private faith. Or the response is to fight back. We've got a plan. We've got to kickstart the church's mission. We've got to resurrect the gospel in England. The challenge is that by either reclusion or activism, we actually say Jesus' word isn't enough. Either I'm going to hide away or I'm going to fight back myself. Newbigin said, he reminds the church, Jesus is the ultimate missionary in the world. He's still working today. It's tempting to think he's gone away to heaven, now it's our job to do. No, Jesus has sent the Spirit. The Spirit is the Spirit of Christ. The Holy Spirit is working in marvelous and mysterious ways. It's incredible. And he doesn't actually need us to do this job. But thankfully, and he graciously invites us to participate with him in 3 ways. To be a foretaste of the kingdom. We're to whet people's appetite for Jesus through our words and our actions. We're used by Jesus as an instrument to help people know him, and we're a sign pointing to Jesus. That's cool. You know, we've got actually something to be involved in, but we're not the primary actors in the world. We're secondary to Jesus. He is the Lord. His word is enough. He is bringing all nations to himself. He is making all things new. now I can relax a little bit. It's not on me. And now I can live open and free and honest and excited for the way Jesus is working in the world. So how then do we identify our faith? As a personalized, private way of life, or an anxious desire to do Jesus' work for him? I've definitely fallen into both camps at various points in my life, certainly. But imagine if we trusted Jesus' words of lordship. Newbegin says we would begin to embody an explosion of joy. We can live our days open, honest, and free with confidence that Jesus, the light of the world, is shining in the darkest places. Finally, Jesus is challenged regarding the issue of ancestry. And strangely, it's not the Pharisees this time who really go at Jesus. It's actually, in verse 30, we read that many begin to believe in Jesus. But very quickly, that same audience suddenly becomes his fiercest critics, because later they call him a child of the devil. And they attack Jesus because he triggers something in them. He touches on their treasured ancestry and traditions. It all begins from this moment. Jesus says, if you hold to my teaching, you really are my disciples. Then you'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free. That sounds really liberating, exciting message. The truth will set you free. But for them, no. It's touched a sacred cow here, and they don't like it. They say, wait a minute, we're privileged as God's people. We're Abraham's descendants. We've never been enslaved. And as good as that ancestry and those traditions are, these people are not as free as they might think. Because one's traditions don't ensure an openness to God. If they refuse to listen to God in Jesus, they sin, they're stuck in sin, and they're not truly part of God's people. They need to open their lives to the truth, to Jesus, to be set free to embrace the long-awaited kingdom of God. And so the sign of their sin, their illegitimacy, is confirmed through their actions in trying to kill Jesus, which is certainly not what Abraham, their supposed father, would want to do, who loved and obeyed God. And this moment in the story raises our final concern. To what extent do our traditions become a hindrance to learning, seeing, hearing, and knowing Jesus? Over the last 10 years or so, in serving and following Jesus, this has actually been one of the primary questions that he's faced to me. I grew up in this church tradition, this growing, charismatic, evangelical church planting movement. And it was actually a really exciting place to grow up in. It really was. But the energy that was there, it created, at least within me, and I think it did in others actually, an impression that we were at the center of God's mission and will. Everyone else is on the fringe, languishing behind. Scary thing is, at that point, I would have viewed you amazing people in that way. How arrogant. At that point in my life, my pride in my tradition limited how I saw Jesus at work in other churches, in other people, in other settings. Now, eventually, in moving to New Zealand, surprisingly, finding myself as working at a Baptist church, I was very quickly humbled. These people knew Jesus very differently than how I did, but it was profound. Wow. I'd never considered that Christ could be honored in that way. This is remarkable. And my life, my imagination of God grew bigger and bigger because it was so small. But it was painful. I once had this picture of me sat in my living room and this bulldozer just smashed this building. The walls crashing in, glass flying everywhere, picture frames sent flying. Jesus was reconstructing my life on the foundations that he gifted me, the gospel foundations from my tradition. I'm indebted to that. but parts of the decor had to go. And that process has continued, because where am I now? I find myself in this path of ordination in the Church of England, which is so exciting. And I see Jesus in you and in the Church of England in ways I could have never have imagined. A disclaimer, I'm not suggesting in any way the way in which to know God more, you have to jump to another church or go to another denomination, nor am I intending to leave at any particular point. But is it possible that through a rigid alliance to a certain set of values or traditions or ideas that we've inherited or that we cherish, we get stuck? We believe we've learned all there is to know about God, and we only allow Jesus to confirm our presuppositions rather than challenge and transform us. But what's a disciple? It's an apprentice. We're an apprentice for life. We never qualify. We're always beginning with Jesus. We're always learning. We're lifelong learners, aren't we? So are we open and intent on learning new things about Jesus? Or are we stuck with our particular tradition's sole perception of God's ways? In this passage, we see the Pharisees' minds darken through their opposition to Jesus. They reject God through their obsession with a future fantasy. They deem Jesus' words insufficient, and through an adoration of their tradition. And we can do the same. However, as we live in the present, we trust in Jesus as the Lord of the world. He's acting and saving in remarkable ways, and we're open to his surprising revelation. Our vision of Jesus explodes to new dimensions. We begin to see that we live in an immense world of salvation as Jesus, the light of the world, shines all around. Amen. Let me just offer a very brief prayer, and then I'll pass over to Paul. Jesus, I just want to say, I guess on behalf of us here, that we want to live open to you. We don't want our vision of you to grow dim. We want our imagination to explode with life as we see you in ways that we could never have fathomed before. Help us live open to you. Help us to know you in new ways. Lead us in that remarkable adventure of discipleship, of a whole life of learning. Help us know and discover you, Savior, Lord, light of the world. Amen.